The children, there were 10 children in the family and I was number 4. And we had 2 older sisters who claimed to be the boss in the family, and then 4 boys in a row. And so I was the second oldest boy. We lived at a time when everything was done by manpower rather than machinery. We had all the farming and ranching, taking care of cattle was all done by horses. You either rode a horse, rode on a wagon and with a team pulling it, or you walked, which was commonly known as riding on Shanks's ponies. And so this was the typical lifestyle there. As we were growing up, the Big Depression started in the early 30s, and my father died in 1934 in the middle of the Depression, and the baby, the youngest one, was 6 weeks old when Dad died. So Mother had a tremendous job to go, and my older brother and I worked out when we could find jobs to help get a little money. And then we took care of our own farm and cattle and things when we didn't have jobs to work on. The family all worked together. We grew most of our food. We had a big garden, and then we grew all the hay and potatoes for cattle in the fall, for feeding during the winter. So we always ate good. We had good, healthy food. Mom was a real good cook, and Mother made butter, and she would sell a few pounds of butter to get a little bit of money for buying from a store. About the only things that we ever bought from the store was the yeast to make bread with, and the spices, sugar, salt, cinnamon, and this sort of thing. We never bought canned food or anything. We always grew our own, and so this was a typical way of life at that time. It was a good life. I look back, I don't regret working that hard all my life. All the family worked. All the 10, everyone was good and healthy and developed good, strong bodies. And so it was good life, and people helped each other when there was illness or if a man got injured. The neighbors would just go put his hay in, or take care of the crops, whatever they needed to do at that time. So it was good. Mother used to say when we got older, she says, I wish we'd have had money so you kids didn't have to work so hard. I told her, I said, that was the best thing in the world for us. I said, you raised 10 children, none of them were ever in any trouble with the law. Out of the 10, there was 6 graduated from college. 2 of them had nurses training, registered nurses. And of the 4 boys in a row, all 4 of us were in World War II. And the only casualty, my oldest brother, who was a B-17 pilot, died. I had 4 of my brothers were pilots. The mother done a great job in rearing the family, and so I told her that if all the world was raised like we would, there would be no need for jails and policemen and other types of law enforcement. On the weekends, we always went to church. Mother was very good in teaching us the correct principles and what to do. The thing I do remember about, we had, of course, a large family, and we had a big round oak table, and we'd put leaves in the table that would expand the table out a bit larger when the family would sit down to a meal, and then we'd take it out and it would come up into a smaller table. But in the evening, when we got in, she used to play games with us. We had games that would called old pit and other types of family games that you'd go around and do. And she would always take time in the evenings to sit down and play games with us as we were growing up. And even though she had a lot of work to do, as I think back, we all worked all day long, and she done another day's work after we went to bed. She was a small woman, very feisty and hard-working, but she was totally devoted to the family and the children. And I'd heard later on that the men would say, well, whatever you do, don't cross Minnie McGuire, because she would defend her children to her death, I'm sure of that. But she worked hard all her life, never remarried, and she lived to just about 94. We lived there on the corner of Highway 40. It was the main highway from Denver to Salt Lake. And in the Depression years, there were many people out of work, and they called them tramps, but or a hobo would be another name, but tramp was the normal term. And all the McGuire family, there was about 7 of them, lived down the street below us, and we had a big window facing west, and the younger children would be up on the chair, standing there looking out the window, and they said, here comes a tramp, and he's at this house, he's at that house, this house, and they'd all turn him away. He'd come up to Mother's house. She never let them in the house, but had them sit out in the shade of the trees. We had a lot of shade trees around their home, and she would always fix them a plate of food. She never turned anyone away who asked for a meal. And I likened it a lot to the Elijah when he went to the widow and asked for cake, and she said she only had a little oil and a meal, and she was going to bake that, her and her son, and they were going to die. And Elijah said, first make me a cake. She did, and of course the oil and the meal never wasted. Well, Mother never had money of any amount, but I never knew the day that she couldn't fix a meal for someone when they came in. So her example with that is something I'd remembered all my life. And that she was a very faithful woman to the church and tried to live right, but she always was willing to help people. She says, you're never poor if you have something you can give people.